Welcome to our knowledge session, a healthcare provider case study. Hear about a leading healthcare provider and how they automate vendor risk management in IRM powered by ServiceNow in only 12 weeks. Our agenda today is the following. We'll do an overview of the journey. We'll talk about integrated risk management and then vendor risk management. We'll summarize the value delivered as well as talk about the roadmap for true digital transformation. Before we go any further, let's do some introductions. We're very fortunate to have one of our clients join us today, Barb, from a leading healthcare provider. So Barb, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure, love to. I'm Barb Wernicke. I manage a cyber risk management team at a healthcare organization. Our team is primarily responsible for vendor risk management, as well as our cyclical risk assessments, supporting promoting interoperability. Also have experience in risk assessments from a public accounting background. So happy to be here today with Edgile and share our experiences.
That's great, Barb. Thanks so much for being here with us today and your continued partnership. So this is Brian Risman speaking. I'm a partner with Edgile. We're an elite partner of ServiceNow, specifically in the security and risk space. Myself and another colleague, we lead this team, and we made the decision to actually tune our entire risk and security business exclusively to working with ServiceNow from a GRC and SecOps perspective. We're joined here by Greg Liebergen. Greg's one of our directors who has supported Barb and her team on the implementation. So I'll have Greg do a quick introduction.
Great, thanks, Brian. Hey, everyone. As Brian said, my name is Greg Liebergen, director here in our risk and security practice. I came to Edgile with a decade of experience working for a member of the Big Four, as well as working for another healthcare provider where I was responsible for building out the governance, risk, and compliance program, leveraging the ServiceNow platform. And so I had the pleasure of working with Barb and her team on this 12-week project to get their ServiceNow IRM up and running. And I'm excited to talk through and unpack what that looks like today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Greg. Just another couple quick seconds on Edgile. In addition to our risk and security practice powered by ServiceNow, we also have a cloud security practice largely wrapped around Microsoft, as well as an identity access management practice largely wrapped around SailPoint. What's great is that both of those partners are also partners with ServiceNow, so we spend a lot of time bringing all of those worlds together. Powered by ServiceNow being at the core of all of that.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. So as we mentioned, we were able to do a lot of work in a 12-week window. We were able to help Barb and her team stand up both vendor risk management and the integrated risk management processes and workflows in ServiceNow in that 12-week period. So Barb is going to spend some time later on talking about unpacking vendor risk management and what that includes. But I want to spend a minute just kind of talking through the overall IRM and the 5-pass model that you can see right now. And so really, we start with passes 1 and 2, which is our crawl phase. We started with pass 1, the risk register, which is kind of those harmonized laws and requirements where we leverage Edgile's ARC content, or the automated regulatory compliance content, which includes 550 plus different laws and regulations that our clients have to abide by and follow. And Pass 2 is really focused on an applicability matrix, and that's starting to take the different risks that fall out of those laws and regulations and start applying them to different organizational environments. And then we move on to Pass 3 and Pass 4, which is kind of our walk phase. So Pass 3 is a diagnostics. It's a quick way for our clients to be able to check with their entity owners or their application owners and facility owners to say, which controls do you have in place? Do they meet our expectations? And are we in compliance with the different regulations that we need to be concerned with? Pass 4 is moving into a deep dive assessment, and that's where we go and we actually start documenting our different controls and setting those expectations as far as what we're actually doing when we're performing those controls. And then lastly, Pass 5 is what we call our run phase, and that's really focused around control testing and doing deep dives and making sure that the controls are operating effectively, they're designed effectively, and actually gathering evidence to confirm that what our our IT owners, our control owners are saying is in place, truly is in place. And so when we worked with Barb, we focused, like I said, on the vendor risk management, but from the IRM side, we focused on that risk register and the diagnostics and getting them up and running. And so, Brian, obviously the risk register is a big piece of what we did and a big piece of that foundation as we're working with, clients like Barb as well as others. Do you want to maybe spend a few minutes and unpack ARC content and what that really is?
Absolutely. Yeah. So with the risk register, if you will, the core foundation of that is the ability to harmonize all these laws, regulations, and frameworks that each industry and organizations have that they need to comply with or want to be aware of. So one of the ways that we've solved for that and the ability for us to really help organizations find quick time to value, in this case, within 12 weeks for both IRM and VRM, is through leveraging a lot of the accelerators that Edgile has. So if you were to go to the ServiceNow store.servicenow.com and type in the word Edgile, you would see over 24 certified applications. A lot of them are these ARC or automated regulatory compliance applications. So ARC really supports two things. One is content, if you will. So think about laws, regulations, and frameworks. In Barb's case, think of HIPAA or HITRUST or privacy laws, or the NIST series, PCI, et cetera, as well as a regulatory change management solution, which are really the closed loop workflows that organizations need in order to keep their programs current. As you know, let's think about privacy, for an example. There's a lot of changes to privacy mandates, that are currently going on at the state and local level, as well as the global level. So as those change, you need a way to adjudicate and update your program. That's where those regulatory change management workflows come into place, and they're complementary to the current ServiceNow reg change capabilities today. So that content was really an accelerator that allowed Barb and her team to get up and running, with quick time to value. Greg mentioned we have over 550 laws, regulations, and frameworks. You'll see the number of authority documents that Barb and her team selected to onboard into their environment. And that really translated into nearly 10,000 citations. So these are citations, verbatim from the source documents that we then have broken down into citations and mapped into requirements. So Greg's going to talk in a few minutes about taxonomies, but really, these requirements allow you to get integrated risk and compliance. We intentionally have a one-for-one mapping between a control objective and a risk statement to find that harmonization and integration that you're looking for. And that's all pre-built with the industry content packs that we have through ARC. So with that, Barb, do you maybe want to spend a minute or two talking about this experience for you and going through the source selection and leveraging Edgile's ARC content?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there are enough memory supplements available to me to remember all of those authority documents or citations on my own. So this was a key differentiator for Edgile, and our team was really excited to see ARC and the capabilities it offered for our team. We know the laws and regulations that are out there and what we need to comply with, but keeping up to date with them is a daunting task. So we were able to work with Edgile to go through the sources, the 500 or so that Brian and Greg alluded to, and select those 262 that were most important to us. 262 is quite a bit, so all of those are maybe not our primary sources, but the HIPAA, NIST, CIS are going to be our primary sources, and then maybe like the California privacy, GDPR, things like that can be our secondary sources. We still want to know about them, be able to reference them when we need to, but are not most important to us. So we keep them in there and can have them at our fingertips if we need to. So really appreciate ARC and what it has brought to our platform.
Fantastic. Thanks, Barb. Well, we know this was a critical component foundationally to the risk register. So Greg, why don't you walk us through how we're able to continue to leverage additional accelerators that we provided, to get them on the risk register journey?
Absolutely, Brian. So I think we really started off by aligning on our risk taxonomies And so, one of the things that we do with our quick starts and what we worked with Barb and her team was, we come to the table with kind of predefined risk taxonomies, and then we can work with our clients, like we did with Barb, to align their risk taxonomies into the ServiceNow platform. So they're able to leverage what they're used to working with, or adjust and adopt a new risk taxonomy if needed. And so we worked with Barb and her team, working through defining what impact and likelihood and the risk matrices look like. So 5x5 risk matrix for some clients, 4x4, some use a 3x3, really being able to build that out so that we could take that and start applying that to the content as it fell out of those different authority documents that Barb and the team selected. So with these different impact, likelihood, risk matrices, the different taxonomies, we use those and we align them to start rating risks associated in our what we call our 6x26 model. So there's 6 risk categories and 26 risk topics. So the risk categories being the white boxes and the risk topics being the 26 green boxes here. And really what this does is this allows us to have a standardized reporting approach that is an easy to understand, executive level view where we can start reporting out on both our inherent and residual risk, showing quantified risk reduction through both qualitative and quantitative risk measures, and sharing this with both the board or senior leaders, and start showing them how you're actually working through and reducing that overall risk. So Barb, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind kind of talking through kind of how we leverage that 6x26 model and the risk taxonomies to start building out your reporting?
Absolutely. Our risk taxonomy comes from our enterprise risk management team down to our IRM team. And so with that, we have a 5x5 matrices that the Edgile team was kind enough to help us set up with these heat maps and all of the dashboards we would need. And with that, we were able to have the reporting right from the start. We were able to have that for applications, entities. We can drill into the data. We can provide that to our executive leadership team as we need to. And it's incredibly useful information right at our fingertips. So can't speak highly enough of how useful this dashboard is and the risk methodology and how it flows throughout the platform here.
That's great, Barb. One of the philosophies that we have here at Edgile, and this has really come through, decades of experience and lessons learned, is really about reporting first. Ultimately, if you were to set up a GRC program, but not focus on reporting and get management the information that they need, that wouldn't look good for you or for us. So really one of our philosophies here at Edgile is, how do we make sure that we're defining the reports and the dashboards that you need at the beginning of the project? One of the first meetings we had during the requirement session was, who are we reporting to and what do they need to see? And we went through an exercise to define what those were, to make sure that we were capturing the right data, had the right fields and containers to build these reports, so that very quickly, in this 12-week journey, we're able to get meaningful and visual reports, for your management to take a look at. So I'm glad that worked out as part of the process. That's really one of our philosophies, is really around reporting first.
Absolutely. And having that heat map is one of the first things, my leadership team is going to ask for, and knowing at the start of that 12-week program that we were going to have those reports that we needed, and not having to second guess that at the end of the 12 weeks, we weren't going to have the data we needed, or that I was going to have to manually pull together Excel spreadsheets after putting all the effort into automating the entire process, and then having to manually do KPIs at the end of it. It was nice having that comfort.
Fantastic. That's great. Perfect. Well, let's talk about some of the value we got now on the past 3, the diagnostic survey piece, both from a facility and application perspective. Greg, you want to get us started here?
Definitely. Thanks, Brian. So, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, the diagnostic is really meant to be a quick check to understand what controls are in place and to start in determining if they are compliant or not with the different different authority documents and sources that we're tracking. And so one of the benefits of kind of using the diagnostics here is we're able to provide a consistent assessment criteria. So by leveraging ServiceNow and using the standardized assessment here, we're removing the subjectivity of different individuals asking different questions and documenting responses in a different manner. So we're driving consistency, making sure that we're getting the right information in the same way without letting someone interpret an answer in a way that may not have been intended. This is also, it's allowing Barb and her team to streamline their process, and they're no longer having to play that middle person between the person that needs to respond to controls and reporting. They're able to send this out, empower the person responding to the survey to answer it in ServiceNow and just speed up the process overall. And then lastly, because that data lives in ServiceNow, they're able to aggregate and actually create reports on different compliance and the state of these applications and these facilities that they're doing assessments on. So Barb, do you maybe want to spend just a minute and kind of talk through the benefits and the impacts that you've seen from these diagnostics and how it's changed the workflow that your team is managing?
Sure. These diagnostics, other than the fact that they're incredibly user-friendly, the end user interface is great. The drop downs are nice for our subject matter experts. They also add that consistency. So in the past, we were using Excel documents and manual interview processes. Now we have these logic-driven diagnostics. So if an application follows our standard access process, they're not going to get asked an additional 10 questions. So it speeds up the process. It's a win-win for our SMEs. It's a win-win for us. And that aggregate data comes through to my team in a very easy to digest format in the tool. The diagnostics really, like the bullet point says, streamlines the process, makes it easier on both parties. And with that, I think we can switch gears and go to vendor risk management. With the implementation of vendor risk management, we were able to go from the manual Excel spreadsheets to a tailored and streamlined process with the portal. The vendor tiering process here helped us speed things up and was really instrumental in changing the way we did things. So the first bubble, we get the information from the business about the vendor. That helps us figure out the inherent risk, and the vendor tiering comes across in a calculation that's done in the back end by ServiceNow. Edgile helped us set up those calculations and figure out what questions would be weighted certain ways to equate to that risk score. That helps us move from a subjective approach to a consistent objective approach. And with that, we were able to decide which vendors we would continue in that process and have a full-blown vendor risk assessment versus partial vendor risk assessments based on their vendor tiering. The vendor risk assessment portal is also nice for those vendor stakeholders. It's a collaborative portal and reduces or eliminates the need for emails back and forth. They still do get emails, but they're automated emails now from the portal reminding them how many days they have left to complete the assessment. If they need to communicate with our team about the assessment itself, they can do so within the portal. And the findings and remediations management is a great function as well. With that, our team, if there are any findings or concerns based on the risk assessment, we can communicate back and forth with the vendor directly in that web-based portal. Overall, the vendor approval and life cycle can be managed start to finish within this vendor risk management platform, which keeps us in a one-stop shop and is what we like to see. So we're not managing things offline and then going back in here to figure things out. So automates the process, reduces the timeline, and we can see all of that in this dashboard. The dashboard helps us track our timeline, helps us figure out what types of risks we're seeing in those assessments, and we can drill down into any of these metrics. Like we said before, we figured out what type of reporting we wanted at the start of the 12 weeks and then implemented that throughout. And it's been useful to see those KPIs come to life since we implemented, and since we ended those 12 weeks, we've been able to see our metrics. This portal integration highlight shows on the left-hand side that the IRM portal view for our stakeholders and end users is a really nice end user interface, pretty easy to use. You can click to what section or portion you need. And then the right-hand side shows what my team sees, also pretty easy to use. We can see exactly what we need to for the vendor, and we can keep track of things in a fairly easy to use spot and update things as we need to. We can also set up auto reminders and alerts, which is great.
Barb, I know one of the things we spoke about, as we're going through this implementation was that how nice it was that your organization was already using and familiar with kind of the core elements of the ServiceNow platform. So being able to send out those diagnostics we spoke about before, using a portal and requesting the onboarding, if you will, of a new vendor and that tiering assessment, you were using techniques in the ServiceNow platform that was familiar already to the organization. So I think there was a lot of value that from a training and a change management standpoint, that you're able to take advantage of with already using ServiceNow and being able to bring these capabilities on board to that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. We were layering on to knowledge as well as layering on to tables we already had within the platform. So we have application tables in the platform. We have location tables in the platform, which came in handy when we needed to do our cyclical risk assessments. We could pull those in to the risk management cycle. So definitely helpful if you need to build on to that process.
Fantastic. That's why we tuned our entire business actually, to the ServiceNow platform. We get the power of the platform, as we know you and your team did as well. So we know this is just the beginning, and that the journey, is going to continue. Barb, do you maybe want to step through some of the roadmap, on where you got to today, what the team's currently working on, and then I'll talk about, where you could go from here.
Sure. So we've talked about our phase 1 and the 12-week process. When Brian and Greg came to us and said, this process will only take us 12 weeks, I was pretty skeptical, but pleasantly surprised that we accomplished everything that we did in those 12 weeks. So the IRM and vendor risk management, we implemented in 12 weeks and have been rocking and rolling with that since. Phase 2, we're going through now with vulnerability response and looking to implement and integrate that with GRC. For phase 3 and phase 4, I have my eye on quite a few of those things, but Brian, I'll let you explain those in a little bit more detail.
Fantastic. Thanks, Barb. So a lot of opportunity to continue the journey. I know Greg talked about the 5-pass journey before. The client, took advantage of a handful of those passes, but there's more opportunity to continue the crawl, walk, and run phases there. We know there's other capabilities, things around business continuity management, or the resiliency journey, if you will. Other areas around audit and control testing, as well as one of our applications on the ServiceNow store as it relates to the evidence warehouse. So we know this is not the end, this is just the beginning, and a lot of opportunities to continue to integrate on the platform. So as we look to start wrapping up here, why don't we talk about and summarize the value delivered, throughout the 12 weeks. Barb?
Yeah. So I think one of the things I've talked about most in our time today is the reporting. Can't speak highly enough of how great it is to not have to do my monthly reporting manually. I'm sick and tired of it. Don't want to ever do it again, and don't have to now that we have this tool. So I'm very thankful for that. Also with that reporting, I can show, and I'm proud to show, the great work my team is doing. And I am thankful for ServiceNow and Edgile to show that we have faster turnaround time for our vendor assessments, for our IT assessments. So a lot faster now that we've automated things and have the efficiencies gained by the portal and platform. We also have improved quality and consistency because everybody's doing things the exact same way. It's very objective with that automation improved and implemented. So all around, great tool. Edgile has been a phenomenal partner for us. So Brian, Greg, thank you for that partnership. Look forward to more partnership as we continue our journey.
That's great, Barb. Thanks very much for yours as well. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us today as well, walking everyone through the journey for integrated risk management and vendor risk management. You're a great client. Thank you for all that you've done for us. Greg, thank you for being here as well and sharing your insights, partnering with Barb on her team on this journey. And again, thank you everyone for joining us as part of Knowledge. We look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you.